Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we're checking out this white, blue and red or Jeskai colored otter control deck, which is using the Stormchaser's talent package alongside this town ain't big enough, making an otter token with prowess. On level 2 can return an instant or sorcery card from our graveyard to our hand, and then a town ain't big enough, a cheap way to bounce both our own Stormchaser's talent back to hand as well as an opposing permanent, and then getting the talent to level 2 can get back town ain't big enough, so we can set up this recursion loop of keep making additional otter tokens while bouncing the opponent's stuff back. A very powerful engine, and now we also get to add Rediscover the Way into the mix, a saga that on the first 2 chapters looks at the top 3 cards, putting 1 in hand, so it's kind of similar to a stock up. Instead of doing it all at once, you get to do it over the course of 2 turns, and then on chapter 3 we can also give our creatures double strike by casting non-creature spells. We also get to rely on 2 copies of Thundertrap Trainer, which when it enters looks at the top 4 cards to reveal a non-creature non-land to put in hand, and it also has Offspring, so in the late game we can cast it for 6 mana to get the effect twice. So that gives us a total of 10 permanents that we're pretty happy to pick back up with our own town ain't big enough, which I think is the bare minimum if you want to run this card in your deck. And then because we have Trainer and Rediscover looking at a ton of cards throughout the course of the game, I like to include a lot of one-offs in this deck, since we are likely to find them when the situation arises where they're useful for us. So we've got a one-off Spell Pierce to counter non-creature spells unless they pay 2. Also a good answer to the Cutter that the opponent might play early on, so we don't need to deal with the Monk tokens. Similar to a Braid, which can just destroy a single artifact, or can also deal 3 damage to a creature. We've got a Get Lost to destroy creatures, enchantments, or planeswalkers, so that's a clean solution to a resolved enchantment. And then at 3 mana we've got 2 Sweepers, Split Up and Brotherhood's End. Split Up can be a cleaner solution to larger creatures that can survive our damage-based removal. Brotherhood's End especially good against the Synthesizer decks making lots of artifacts. And then we also have a one-off Ride's End, another good answer to a larger creature. Exiling it in the process can also be useful against certain aggro decks. And then it's also a solution to a Screaming Nemesis. So between Ride's End, Split Up, Get Lost, and of course our counter spells, we have multiple solutions to a Screaming Nemesis that's on the board, so we don't need to necessarily deal damage to it, which will prevent us from gaining life, because we can gain life with our Lightning Helix, as well as with our Jeskai Revelation, which is going to be one of the big finishing spells. Can also use it as a pseudo counter spell, or we can use it to bounce our own enchantments back, so we can play them again, get more value, make Monk tokens, draw cards, deal damage, gain life, so it kind of does it all. So that's one of the better cards we can also return with our Stormchaser's talent. And then to round things out, Torch the Tower, a great removal spell, plenty of tokens and enchantments we can sacrifice to bargain, including maybe sacrificing Rediscover after we've already gotten our Chapter 2. And then a No More Lies, a counter spell that's very good in the early game, will eventually drop off, but the fact that it exiles the spells that it counters is also relevant in a lot of matchups. And then finally 2 Ill-Timed Explosions to complement our 2 Other Sweepers, and this can also just be a 4 mana draw 2. And then the mana base, nothing fancy, just Surveil lands and Verge lands, Fabled Passage with a couple basics to search up. Could of course also improvise with some of the new lands that have been added in Tarkir Dragonstorm, but especially in Best of 1 I haven't found them to be super necessary. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw. We have a pretty clunky hand with nothing we actively want to bounce with town ain't big enough. 7 mana Revelation. So this one seems like a mulligan to me. This is much better. And then we have to decide what to keep. So I can play Falls on 1, turn 2 keep up No More Lies. Probably the Trainer. Facing turn 1 Heartfire Hero. This one does make a red right away. So I could just keep up Torch here, but then I wouldn't be able to keep up No More Lies on 2. The only potential issue here is that our opponent gets the Heartfire Hero above 2 toughness, but now Ride's End is a solution. Just 1 damage. Another Heartfire. Okay, pass a turn. If a Screaming Nemesis shows up, we've got a few ways to deal with it. Hired Claw is acceptable, doesn't trigger right away. Opponent doesn't make a move yet. Could torch end of turn, although we're also just gearing up towards our ill-timed explosion. So I'm fine just being patient. Not taking too much damage so far. Now I can torch with No More Lies backup as well, if I wanted to take care of the Hired Claw, for instance. I'll just take 3. Maybe our opponent's got a handful of burn spells. Now they're gonna pump Hired Claw. So now I could torch, but we're just gonna untap an explosion, I think. Helix, pretty good too. And then I can discard explosion, so we can deal at least 3 damage. And 1 land can go as well. So now if they untap and play a hasty creature, we'll still have answers for it. It's going to be another Heartfire. Good target for Torch the Tower. And a split up isn't bad either. Although we do want to find some of our card draw effects. Three mana, opponent passes. Yeah, I could just torch the hero now. If they Monstrous Rage, I could respond with a different removal spell, or I could just Lightning Helix. Still take the one from hero dying, but at least it's gonna die. Opponent considering their options, lets it go. Yeah, the main thing we want to prevent is Screaming Nemesis having been dealt damage. Now a second main Light Shatter. Yeah, I can just untap and split up. What am I keeping No More Lies for is the question. Yeah, there's no one card that's really all that backbreaking. But the fact that I can split up without having taken damage from Light Shatter makes me just want to use that as an answer. I guess our opponent got rid of a useless Witchstalker Frenzy for the time being. Yeah, it's not often you get to destroy untapped creatures out of the red deck. Now Manifold Mouse is fine. Still dies to torch. Do I torch it now? Yeah, I guess so. If they Monstrous Rage, I can counter it. Could also wait for them to maybe commit more spells. Alright, Talent is a good draw. Can eventually level that up to get something back. And now we have a blocker. Opponent's gonna probably try and Burst Lightning it. That's fine. So this is maybe my window for Torch. Probably should have actually sacrificed a token to bargain, so I got to scry one in the process. So small misstep. Opponent passes. So can level up talents and get back. A Lightning Helix is always a solid option. Could also go for Explosion to draw 2. Alright, opponent's being very passive as we pick up another counter spell. I'm hesitant to tap out because our opponent could be sandbagging Screaming Nemesis plus Burn spell. Otherwise I would maybe consider leveling up the talent. A Lightning Strike goes face. That's okay. One thing we have to be cognizant of is potentially running out of mana to interact with the opponent's spells if we're at 3 or 4 life. That's how we can maybe lose, and the opponent just fires off a flurry of burn spells. That's acceptable. Hired Claw, we want to Helix. So now we're less worried about the potential Nemesis plus burn spell scenario. And town ain't big enough is pretty good too. So now I don't have to level up talent since we might end up bouncing it. If I tap out now, what's the worst case scenario? I guess they have a burn spell left and top deck Screaming Nemesis. Yeah, maybe I should wait until I have one more mana. Heartfire Hero is acceptable. Could also just bounce it right now. And then get back. Town in big enough, make another otter. The usual. See what's on top. Another No More Lies is probably not needed. Looking for Jeskai Revelation at this point. Get back town in big enough. Getting back Helix again, also reasonable, but let's keep this loop going. So yeah, we're exactly where we want to be, in control with a lot of mana. We've got our loop. So it's just a matter of time until our opponent runs out of threats. They've got one card left in hand. Let's just repeat. Get back town ain't big enough. And we can cast it alongside a counterspell or a Ride's End. But this is also the matchup where we want a few of these white removal spells, like Ride's Ends, Split Up, and Get Lost as answers to Screaming Nemesis without dealing damage to it. So our opponent's just slowly dying to the otter tokens. I can definitely admire their willpower to stay in the game. At some point we can do the math to see if we can present lethal by countering our own spell to trigger prowess. But only want to do that if we're absolutely certain that the game's over. A Hired Claw. Could double No More Lies to counter it, but that feels like a waste. Cast it, trigger prowess. Could bounce the hero right now. Get our creatures up to 3 power each. And then I could replay talents. If I counter it now with No More Lies, we would trigger prowess up to 5 power each. So that would be lethal, but they still have an unknown card in hand, so I'll respect it. Like if they had another Witchstalker Frenzy, it would be pretty silly for me to just throw away all those cards. There's Hardclaw again. Heartfire. And that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand's currently missing blue mana, since we don't have mountain or island for the Verge. And otherwise we have Torch we can keep available. I'll try it. Opponent blue-white. So if this is the artifact deck, we're gonna want Brotherhood's End. Looks like Oculus instead. So Torch not enough to deal with the fear. Opponent discarding Stories. At least no Oculus yet. Play the Archive. Explosion's not amazing, since it's going to be tricky to deal with a Oculus, since we only have so many 5+ mana cards. Although we have one in hand already. But yeah, just countering their reanimation spell might be the best way forward. Ghost Vacuum is relevant. Prevents me from looping stuff with my talents. But we can always destroy it later. Fear number 2 resolves. And now we can finally keep up our counterspell. Could also play the talents. And then I have stuff to sacrifice to bargain. Potentially twice. The Vacuum's gonna keep the graveyard nice and clean. Definitely not a card you usually see in the main deck, so it's mostly here for the Omniscience matchup, I have to imagine. And Mako is fine. And a Scholar. Yeah, that's all fine and good. So I will try and set up the Explosion. Opponent did discards the Oculus. But I have ways to bounce it. So I don't think I bother casting Torch just to soak up a little bit of damage. I mean, I can chump since we're gonna cast a board wipe next turn. And then if I can draw into a 3 mana card, that would be enough. Otherwise, Town Ain't Big Enough has to go. Which I guess currently is my best solution to an Oculus. But I guess we could always double torch it as well. So yeah, the talent's not going to be nearly as useful now. So then I may as well sack it to bargain. Opponent's got another Mako. And looks like they can reanimate Oculus, sadly. Okay. So that's gonna trigger before I get a chance to remove it. Brotherhood's End plus Torch could also deal with Oculus and everything else. So that seems like a better solution. Small chance their last card is a Spell Pierce. In which case, this is not quite going to work out. And now Oculus is exiled for good. Alright, now the problem is we're not really pulling ahead because Vacuum stops our talent plan. So I'll need to find a different way to remove artifacts, like our Braid I guess is left. Fear, discard a card, play a land. And then Winter Night Stories could also be a thing. And discards 2, including Spell Pierce. So 1 card left. Split Up, also an answer to the Fear, or I can just bargain the Torch to exile it. And then Split Up is a better answer to a future Oculus if it shows up. Do I Surveil first or Scry first is a question. Guess we'll Surveil first. Get more info before I make the decision. Could of course also get Talon to level 3, but that's still going to take a while. Revelation we're close to casting, so seems good enough. That can pull us further ahead. Our opponent also has a creature land, which I currently don't have a great answer to. But we should have enough time to draw out of it. So if they have a cheap way to bring back an Oculus, I guess there's no Oculus in graveyard at the moment, but they could hardcast one, which I can at least counter. Mac was acceptable. Just gonna pass, can take a hit. Eventually Ghost Vacuum, I suppose, can also start exiling their own creatures, but they're not interested until they can make use of their own graveyard with Oculus, were they to top deck one. Opponent is looking at the graveyard, so they might be casting an Oculus. Nope, it's just a helping hand. Get back a Scholar. That works. Does enter tapped, so if Mako attacks, Split Up is more effective. Discard another Scholar. So they only had to discard 1 card. Get to untap. I could now cast a Revelation. I think I wait, because it would be a blowout if they picked up a Spell Pierce here in the meantime. And yeah, opponent tries to fight over it. I can pay. So glad I didn't cast a Revelation at least. Definitely strange that they forced me to just tap 2 mana when I had a bunch, since they could always discard the Spell Pierce later to an effect, so it's not a dead card. Would be nice to exile the Harmonize cards with No More Lies. But yeah, I'll pass. Could go for a Revelation, but again there's the threat of a potential Spell Pierce. And we can also bounce a permanent with it, including a Vacuum, so we can maybe time it so that I can bounce the Vacuum end of turn and then still use my graveyard. Alright, opponent harmonizing a Dragon Hunt. So how does Harmonize work exactly? Cast it from your graveyard, then exile this spell. I don't know if it works like Remand on Flashback, where you counter the spell and then it gets exiled instead of going back to hand. Return target spell or permanent. Yeah, the question is if Harmonize is similar to Flashback or if the rules are a little different. I guess it could be worth a shot, or I can still go for the Vacuum. I mean, it's not like the Dragon Hunt really matters. It's more of a curiosity about the rules. But yeah, I'll try to bounce the Vacuum. That way there's maybe a small window where I can top deck Talent to get it back. Find a Trainer, which I can cast with Offspring. If I cast it for 2 mana, I could still find Talent and level it up. Not casting it with Offspring feels like a bit of a waste, although getting Talent to return Revelation would be a big deal. Yeah, let's try that. Town ain't big enough instead. Still decent. And then, yeah, I guess we'll just keep up our various instants. Don't want to lose Trainer to a removal spell, since we would prefer to bounce it. There's our Light Shatter. I could double No More Lies to counter it, because if it attacks, they do get to cast a spell from graveyard. Although there's a lot of nonsense in here too. So we'll see if there's anything else. Opponent discards an Oculus. Good to keep in mind. Yeah, I'll let them attack. And Fear of Missing Out is what they found. Pretty good. Take 3. Opponent starts with a Ghost Vacuum. I think I actually fight over this. Opponent wants to Torch the Trainer. Responds by bouncing. Okay, so that worked out. Vacuum still countered. And they don't get to play Fear of Missing Out. And now I'm gonna cast it with Offspring, since we don't have to worry about the Ghost Vacuum anymore. Find a Ride's End. And to Rediscover over Helix. Although that's a close call. So we'll maybe keep up our interaction still. Next turn we can Rediscover. Hope they don't get lucky with a trigger. Although we can counter whatever they would cast. Discards another Winter Night Stories. And a Sheltered by Ghosts. Yeah, that would play around Ride's Ends. So I might have to just counter that one. So yeah, still late in the game, we got our uses out of our conditional counter spells. Opponents could attack in the hopes of getting back a helping hand, but our opponent's gonna pass. And now Torch can also deal with Light Shatter. Another Rediscover. Let's chain some more together. And now maybe Talents can get back our Revelation. Although I could attack for lethal here. If I Torch, could even bargain with the Offspring Trainer, to be honest. Since we still have 11 damage coming across. And the Otter is technically more valuable. So yeah, it took us a while to eventually find our card draw enchantments, but now we're fully going off. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Probably want to just fetch Island right away. And then we've got some good options on too. Headliners, so it could be Goblins. Or maybe just a token aggro deck. So I guess this one doesn't make red right away. It's the other Verge that starts with red. Yeah, I guess it's still Talent here. And then next turn we can enable Sunbillow. Could also end up splitting up a bunch of creatures. Raceway makes me think that it is just Goblins. So I'm fine with a trade. And a Seer Slicer gets to make a token. So they will have a leftover here. Gonna keep split up since the opponent's deck can go quite wide. So we'll need a catch-up mechanism. Rediscover's not bad either. But yeah, for now let's just Torch the Seer Slicer. Could also wait. They're not gonna have any pump spells to save it. Yeah, on 3 they could play Howl Squad Heavy, which hits pretty hard. And they go to attackers. Can't let them... Opponent doesn't attack with a Seer Slicer, maybe afraid of a Ride's End type effect. So, opponent's still in the second main phase. I'll put some stops to make sure to torch it before it's too late. And then now another Seer Slicer. So, now Split Up looks pretty good too. And then just keep the torches. Astronauts, that's fine. So they'll still have that same Goblin token left over. And we still have Torch with potentially Bargain if needed. Take one. And a Monstrous Rage, okay. I guess I'll Torch. And our opponent scoops it up. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We have a keepable hand. We'll need to find land number 3, but we get to Surveil. Opponent makes me discard. So against Pixie, if they are on Courtyard, I guess it could still be Esper as well. What's least important? I like Explosion if they go wide with Otter tokens. Can also solve that same problem with Brotherhood's End, to be fair. So maybe I ditch the Brotherhood's End, since we're likely to hit some more lane drops here. A Ride's End would maybe be my next pick for card to discard. Fable Passage I'll keep. Against the Pixie deck, generally just want to hit our lane drops and get some of our card draw engines going. Double Courtyard makes it a little bit more likely that they're just on the black-white version, which does go a little bit bigger with demons. So they'll also have Annex and of course Temporary Lockdown to bounce their own stuff back. Braids is a great Lightning Helix target. And I feel okay tapping out for Rediscover. Finding probably a land over Spell Pierce. If they have Annex, they get to tap out for it now, while I don't have Spell Pierce up. There's no many other expensive non-creature spells I need to counter. Wanna dig towards Get Lost as a potential answer to enchantments. Town in Big Enough would be great too. Alright, another Braids. Can Torch with Bargain to answer it. I'll keep my Saga for an extra turn. Could also Explosion, discard Ride's End. Got a few options. Opponent bottomed twice. And there's both Get Lost and Town in Big Enough. I think we try the loop. And we also have the talent to go with it. So, what does that mean for right now? Can bounce Rediscover. And then keep Ride's End to exile Braids. If I bounce a Scavenger, that is. Yeah, I guess we can just play a land and pass. I'm not in a hurry. Opponent moves to attackers. And our opponent scoops it up. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. We are missing blue, however, so we'll still have to wait for either a plains or an island to cast a talent, so it's not perfect. Opponent on a red aggro. And there's our plains or island. I could go Archive and already cast a talent, which is why we played the Verge first. Helix also a fine answer to Hard Claw. But we could also try and wait for them to maybe commit a pump spell. Another talent is reasonable, can eventually get back Lightning Helix, even though the 1/1s aren't the best blockers initially. But I think it's fine since I can cast it alongside a 2-mana removal spell next turn, so then we'll have 4 toughness worth of prowess creatures basically. Want to keep Get Lost for Screaming Nemesis, so we don't damage it. Double Harrowed Claw is a good start. No blocks. No Monstrous Rage either. So we'll play land, play talents, and pass a turn. Could see Burst Lightning end of turn, we don't. Hardfire Hero is acceptable. And a double attack. So we can block Harrowed Claw each, but then I'm the first one that has to make a move. So I think I double block one Harrowed Claw. And then they might make a move, and then we can respond accordingly. They're just gonna pump. So that would go up to a 2/3. So I could Helix the other Harrowed Claw, and then these still Prowess. And I get to trade for their Harrowed Claw, losing 1 Otter, which is fine by me. And then I could already level up the talent, get back Helix, which is a better use of my mana than just passing with Get Lost up. And I may as well attack since I don't think we'll have a profitable block. So Village on Hero. Found another talent. At least with Get Lost we can answer Hero if they go for like a Monstrous Rage. Because yeah, Helix dealing 3 would not be enough. Assuming we're the ones making the first move. If they go for Rock Face, I get to Helix. They've already triggered Valiant, so now Monstrous Rage would not be enough to save it. And they're gonna Monstrous Rage, but yeah, that's a tough lesson to have to learn here. Valiant only triggers once each turn, even if it hasn't resolved, the trigger only goes on the stack once. Maybe they just wanted to deal 5 damage on the way out, but I kind of doubt it. So we get to untap. Town Ain't Big Enough is excellent, but I can level up a talent, get back Helix for now. And then how aggressive do we want to get? I'll wait one more turn. There's the Nemesis. Have to be careful, because they could have a Burst Lightning to damage it. So I don't want to be the first one casting the Get Lost, so I'll just take 3. Could of course also bounce it. So now I get to untap. And then now we have options. I could start with Town Ain't Big Enough, bouncing Talent, bouncing Nemesis. Then they could try Burst Lightning a response, or they could just let it happen and recast it next turn. And then we've got this awkward erase on our hands. Yeah, definitely feels like I want to do something here. Let's try this. So we've already leveled this one up. And yeah, that's the Burst Lightning a response. So in response to that, we'll Get Lost it. So they don't get to prevent the life gain. And they also don't get to redirect the Burst Lightning, so that was kind of like a 2-for-1. and definitely replay talent now. Hit you for 8. So we might be winning the race. And a revelation seems lovely. We have 7 mana. So unless they have another Nemesis plus burn spell, we should comfortably win this one. It's going to be a challenger. The map tokens do enable Valiant. And they found a hero and a land. So what's the most damage they can deal here? Monstrous Rage plus Burst Lightning. Just an Abrade, so they're packing answers for the cutter. But yeah, now we've got a wealth of options. Opponent's at 11. Could cast it now for the prowess triggers. Could wait until their turn. Feel okay just doing it now. So I can return like a Sanctuary or their map token. Let's go with a Sanctuary. 4 to the challenger just to play it safe. Then our talents can also eventually get back revelation. Hit for 4. And with Helix, we should have it. I guess a Hardfire with Rock Face plus Monstrous Rage could be a lot of damage, but not if they can't sacrifice it. Alright, they can give it double strike. So still a respectable attack. But they seem very dead on the way back here. Could level up talent, cast another 2 mana spell, but it's not going to be needed. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We'll need to hit some more land drops, but this is fine to start out. Turn 1 swamp, land is good. And keep another land on top. Alright, so with all the mana we can put the talents and the town in big enough to use. Bat likely takes Torch. So blue-black could be a Kaito type of deck. Actually took the trainer. It's a little surprising. Okay, I can pass. Can Torch plus Spell Pierce. Or I could play Talent and Torch now. They could be a demon deck resolving Annex. A reason to keep up Spell Pierce. If they ninjutsu Kaito, I need to make sure to Torch the bat before it attacks. So I guess we'll try and set that up. Keep up Spell Pierce, opponent doesn't cast anything. And then now we could play Trainer, keep up Spell Pierce. Or go tap land, talent, keep up Spell Pierce, which is fine too. Another town in big enough can be awful. Got multiple things to bounce. Probably should have kept up blue-reds to represent another Torch. Don't care if the token dies. And Archfiend. Yeah, that's pretty awful in the face of these 2 mana bounce effects. But it does kind of reinforce the idea that they might have an Annex, which they can try and resolve now through Spell Pierce. Although that we could also try and bounce. So, what's the play for now? Could be Trainer plus town in big enough. Finding No More Lies Split Up. Split Up is pretty good at answering large demons. No More Lies would help me counter Annex a little bit longer. But let's take the creature answer. And then I don't want to bounce talent until I level it up, so we'll do this now. Do it before they can remove trainer in response. And there's Annex, as we suspected. Okay, so what's my plan now? They might just replay the demon or unlock the ritual chamber. Maybe we let them and just bounce the demon token. And then for now I can replay trainer, maybe look for Get Lost as a removal spell for their enchantments. Found Explosion and another town ain't big enough. Yeah, I'll grab town. Opponent replays Archfiend. And then before they trigger Annex, we'll bounce it. Alongside probably the trainer can fight with Spell Pierce over any potential removal spells. And then next turn I could level up the talent. They could have another cut down. And that works. Alright, we just want to keep hitting our land drops pretty much. Eventually find our Revelation to burn them out. Opponent takes 2 again. And there's a Revelation. And there's land 7. Ride's Ends, also a good answer to a larger demon. Could play trainer with Offspring. Could talent, level up, get back town, but I wouldn't be able to cast it. So maybe it is a trainer turn without Offspring keeping up interaction. Opponent attempts to anoint. Yeah, could respond by bouncing. Find another town ain't big enough, I guess. Replay trainer. And Get Lost is what we wanted. A clean answer to the Annex and Ritual Chamber. And our opponent scoops it up. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. We've got a fine hand with some good interaction. And we'll start with Falls, so we can maybe Torch, play Tapped Archive. So turn 1 Plains. Could be a life gain deck, although those usually start with a 1-mana creature. Could be Omniscience combo still, in which case Torch is pretty awful. Could be a control deck. Yeah, we already have 2 spot removal spells, so I don't think I need to keep another Torch. Second Plains is interesting. Alright, so there's a life gain deck after all. We drew another Torch regardless. So is there any must counter 3-drop in this matchup? Not that I can think of. Nothing we can't just answer with removal. So then I'm happy enough playing tap lane and casting Torch. Trainer's fine. And I could Torch now in case there's any instant speed shenanigans. Although I think we can wait. And then Trainer's looking for town ain't big enough. Maybe we can find our talent with it. Alright, final showdown, making healer indestructible. That's a fine outcome. They wasted their entire turn on it. Play Trainer, see what we find, and then I can decide whether to play Tapland or the Verge for Torch. Find a Get Lost. Yeah, for now I'm also just okay trading for the healer, which they seem to want to protect. But maybe the Surveil changes my mind. It does not. Now if I do draw into town in big enough after having traded the trainer, I'll be pretty sad not to have something to bounce. So we'll see. So definitely looks mono-white if they have Foundry and Blast Zone in there too. Blast Zone can be an answer to our enchantments. So yeah, maybe I'll take 3 for now. Could also try and block with removal spell backup in case they have more instants. So definitely not a matchup I'm used to playing. Not sure what to expect. But we just want to find one of our enchantments as soon as possible. So I could block, see if there's a response. They know about Get Lost. They're still going to try and smite. Fair enough. Yeah, I guess that happens, so then I don't need to deal with the healer now. Take my turn. I'm a little sad that I'm not spending my mana each turn. And now a veteran. This is a cleric, this bumps soldiers. Yeah, also a good one to exile with Torch so it doesn't come back. This one, when kicked, returns a non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. So if they have multiple healers, they're also good to exile. So I could no moralize the veteran, Torch the healer, but then I don't have a counterspell for a non-creature threat. Although maybe Get Lost is good enough. Yeah, you know what, let's just exile everything. Because if they're starting to kick healers, getting back more creatures, without card advantage I can't keep up. So just 1-for-1ing back and forth. I guess the exiled trainer was a 2-for-1, and yeah, there's our town in big enough, which is now missing something to bounce. But we still have plenty of our enchantments. In the meantime, we're not under any pressure. Opponent activates Foundry, which I'm happy to Helix. They could smite it in response so I don't gain 3. But yeah, they don't seem to have one. And Demolition Field is fine. Okay, so it's still just a waiting game until we can find some card advantage. Have enough mana to cast a Revelation as well. Opponent might consider taking a Blast Zone, although on one counter it's actually a good answer to a talent. So I have to imagine their hand contains some removal. They are looking at Blast Zone. And goes up to 3 counters, so it can now destroy our Saga after the first chapter, perhaps. But then I could still maybe bounce it. Spell Pierce not looking great. Alright, I mean, I don't feel bad about how this game's progressing. Maybe I should. Pick up more counterspells. That's where having one of those new lands that can activate to provide a bit of value each turn could be pretty useful. But to be fair, this situation's pretty uncommon in today's day and age. Most games don't end up in a draw-go situation for multiple consecutive turns. Alright, so we'll just pick up Rediscover. I don't think I cast it until I can bounce it with Town in big enough. And a trainer I can cast with Offspring. So we've now finally hit our pocket of card draw effects. Opponent looks at Blast Zone again. 2 more counters up to 5. And we have options here. Can play a Trainer with Offspring, or we can rediscover for starters. Maybe they have a Get Lost to destroy our enchantments. Find Revelation. And we can pass. Try and extract as much value out of every card as possible now. We're not in a hurry. Hitting land drops is great. Can grab another one here. I will have to discard to hand size. Unless, I guess I cast something proactive like a Helix at the opponent. But that feels like a waste. So I can Revelation, have 2 mana left. Can probably discard Spell Pierce at this point. And then Revelation can also bounce Rediscover, so that's a pretty neat combo. Could also bounce the Blast Zone, but I'm happy with it on 5 counters. So 4 to my opponent, pick up my enchantments. They could now maybe get lost in response. But the Revelation still resolves because it has different targets. So you can't fizzle it by just removing the bounced permanent. And then, yeah, we'll just take our turn. Still half of our library remaining, so not too concerned about milling out. Can trigger Prowess a bunch. Find Torch a Tower maybe, or Ride's End if we want to deal with larger threats. Play another one. Haven't found any talents yet. There we go, or I guess take another Revelation. Although talent gets back Revelation. And we can cast it now to trigger Prowess. We're already going to have to discard to hand size as is. So hit for 8. Opponent might have saved some Ride's Ends of their own. And not on my watch, that's fine. On chapter 3 we can also give creatures double strike. So there's a few things to think about. And then I'll keep up some mana. Discard maybe a land at this point. Although hitting land drops is still nice. Maybe Brotherhood's End, although it's my only sweeper if they, let's say, cycle Valor's Flagship end of turn. Maybe we're getting to the point where a No More Lies isn't useful since they have so much mana to pay for it. Even though like a final showdown with every mode is pretty pricey. Day of Judgment was to be expected. That's fine. Town and Big Enough can also just bounce multiple enchantments at the same time. So we've got options for days. I guess I'm forced to take a card. I can't submit 0. And what's next? Town ain't big enough, probably. Alright, so want to get back my Revelation, which I can still cast end of turn. That works. Can also consider getting the talent to level 3, but I'll start with a Revelation. Once again, discard No More Lies, and maybe the Trainer's not needed. Maybe a Braid is next. A Valiant Veteran out of nowhere. Sure. A Revelation, 4 to the Veteran. And bounce a Rediscover. Although honestly, I could also just cast a removal spell on it to trigger Prowess and deal 4 to my opponent directly. Then the monks will gain double strike, so we can get some damage in. Yeah, playing control is a lot more fun when the opponent presents stuff for you to kill. So that happens, no need to bounce in response. Play Talent. And Rediscover. And grab another talent. Possible they're sitting on more instant speed removal, like Not on My Watch. So getting back a cheap counterspell's not going to help there either. Can a Braid. So we're technically already close to lethal here. Can probably get to a point where both of the monks are individually attacking for lethal with town ain't big enough, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, Not on My Watch. Anything else? Another one. Alright. So that's fine. We'll just take it slow. Finally don't have to discard to hand size end of turn. So the plan is Talon, get back Revelation again. Split up for the tokens. Happens. There's no real need to bounce anything right now. Find a land. I'm okay committing all the talents, because even if they blast zone on 1 right away, we can still bounce them with town ain't big enough. And then end of turn will Revelation. Probably don't need both Brotherhood's End and Explosion. 18 cards remain. And then next turn, once again, we get to give our creatures double strike. Opponent wants to remove it. Yeah, I mean, there's more Rediscovers in the deck, so that's fine. Not gonna fight over it. Just want to make sure the monks happen and we can trigger Prowess a bunch. And then I could bounce a talent that's already been leveled up. So 3 more Prowess creatures. We've now seen our entire deck. And yeah, let's see here. I'll level up. Possible getting one to level 3 is the correct move in this circumstance. Could also go for Lightning Helix if we want to stop drawing extra cards. Helix Face, level up, can Helix Face again. And that should just about do it. And our opponent scoops it up, awesome. So yeah, very strange last game here to close it out. But yeah, shows some of the inevitability that this Jeskai Otters deck has to offer. Just looping spells over and over, we'll find answers even to graveyard hate most of the time, so there's a lot of different angles of attack, and since we get to see so many cards, I like all the one-offs, like the One of a Braid, Brotherhood's End, Spell Pierce can get people early on. So yeah, it's nice to have a lot of variety to choose from when you're seeing so many cards throughout a game, and especially when you can buy them back out of the graveyard. So yeah, Jeskai Otters is one of the many ways to play a controlling strategy in Standard, just have to have the patience for it. So that's going to do it for today's gameplay. I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.